Hello students, welcome to the 2020 fall semester. As you can see, I'm in our beautiful studio on the campus of Bowie State University. Many of you already have visited or worked in this studio, and it really is high technology. We've got multiple cameras, we have a beautiful new set, but what we want you to make sure that you walk out that door, and here it is. We want to make sure that you learn. We want to know that you can have techniques and skills mandatory to meet the career opportunities within the world of broadcasting. Now, broadcasting is just such a vast world today. You utilize it every day with your cell phones. But before I get into that, always take safety measures. Wearing what? A mask when mandatory, when you're in a large crowd, and gloves, hand sanitizer, with that said. So what are we going to talk about? Two classes, 248 Intro to Broadcast News and 497 the Metro News Report. They kind of work together. You started in 248 and then you transition as a senior into the Metro News. So congratulations to those who are preparing to graduate this December. What is news all about? What is production all about? It's creativity, it's skills, it's knowledge and abilities that you have to carry with you into the professional world. Without those skills, hands-on especially, then it's really hard to get a job. So we're going to start off behind the scenes. Talents can kind of gravitate in front of the camera, but the most prominent opportunities to get you off the ground is behind the scenes. So let's start with number one, 248-497. You're thinking about telling a great story. We send you out and we give you an idea. Let's use COVID-19. So say, for instance, in the studio we have 5 students. I would send those students as a news director as their assignment to different locations. Someone would go to Baltimore, DC, Maryland, Virginia, or as far as New York or Los Angeles or Florida to cover the story on the safety conditions. So what do you need? You got to come up with a blank page. The theme, COVID-19, health issues, the transition, vaccines. And you have to put a spin on your story so each one of you will have a different idea and a different approach how you're going to tell the story, because everything that we do, like a movie, is a story. The opening, the beginning, the middle, and the end. The opening, the middle, and the end. How do you want to open it? How do you want to close it? And what are some of those ingredients inside that will give your story such a strong punch and believability that your audience will follow you? Everything is a message, and that message has to be delivered succinctly and with a short time frame. So with that said, I'm going to give you a story idea. COVID-19. I want you to go to Baltimore, cover the story. How do you prepare? You become a producer. Let me reinforce it. Now you are a producer. You are a multimedia technician. You're a videographer. You're a director. You're a writer. All those come into play, and you're the talent. And in many cases today, news operations and production facilities are doing just that. You're required to do multiple tasks, multiple responsibilities. So now how do you get started? You're given a task, what do? Well, the number one thing is research and being prepared. Research. How do you research the story? What are some of the other stories that are being told? What can you do to put a spin on it, to make it different? So now you come up with an idea on this blank paper. How do you want to tell your story? The number one thing that is very critical is a shot list. I'm assigned to tell the story. I only have a short period of time. I'm going to go on location, but I want a shot list. A shot list will give you some idea of B-roll. And what's B-roll? Well, B-roll, as I'm speaking, basically this is my audio. But if I would cut away to some parts of the story, showing people walking or interacting, or a part of those stories that will give you some sort of cement and concreteness to it, that is B-roll, visuals. Remember this when we use the B-roll in an exam. So B-roll is basically your visuals. Your A-roll is your audio part. So your shot list, what kind of angles do you want? Do you want a medium shot, wide shot, jib shot, over the shoulder shot, cutaway shots? All those terminology are important to your creativity and to your responsibilities as a multimedia production or as a talent or as a news person. That is critical to you, to your final project, to your final look. Let's go back to it again. A shot list. Let's use COVID-19 as an example in Baltimore. So I'm downtown in Baltimore. I'm trying to cover the story. Do I need a hospital? Do I need people walking around? Do I need to show some B-roll shots of some patients? So all of these things come into play on how I'm going to tell my story. You should always open up your story with visuals unless it's live. So if I had a reporter here and the reporter would go live on the stand-up, and then I would be there with this microphone as an example and say, "Hi, I'm Otis Thomas. We're live in downtown Baltimore, and there's some new details concerning COVID-19. As I'm saying that, I'm now going to cut away to some visuals as I'm telling the story. Now, we watch this every day, 7 days a week, so you can always get examples by watching others who are telling the story. So now have my B-roll together. I have my shot list together, the visuals. But do I want to open up with a different approach to nat sound? Well, they call for nat sound. So what is nat sound? As an example, say you were at a basketball game, a football game, and your favorite player makes a dunk, or your favorite football player makes that touchdown. Then all of a sudden people go wild, clapping and applauding. Well, that's nat sound. Nat sound driving down the street. Nat sound. People screaming, people walking, people enjoying themselves. Crisis. Nat sound could be played into your script. So once again, shot list, put together an idea how you want to visually tell the story, different from my story or the other network story. 2, what are you going to be able to look at? We get different kind of elements like nat sound. And I want to open up with nat sound. Is there something, a different approach to what I can see with my creativity? So now you got to take it a little bit farther. Equipment. What kind of equipment? This technology here on the cell phone is very, very powerful. You can use this to tell the complete story, and in some cases, many do today. You can add microphones to this. You can add all sorts of elements to record your story just with this instrument alone. This apparatus is very powerful. However, there are other high-tech machines and cameras that we use in this industry. I'm going to cut away and show you exactly how we set it up. But before I go to that part, this is critical. You're going to cover a story COVID-19. You got a blank piece of paper. You put your shot list together. You know what kind of stand-up you may have to use. And let me refer to stand-ups. There's 3 basic ones. Stand-up live, stand-up bridge, stand-up close, stand-up walking even. I'll repeat them again. Stand-up live, stand-up bridge, stand-up close. What's a stand-up live? I'm standing here and I'm actually in real time in the story with the anchors in the studio, regardless of where I'm located. A bridge, I'm going to bridge the story from one element to another element, but the reporter or the storyteller is inside of the story. An example, COVID-19, I'm downtown or I'm covering the story in Baltimore, that's my assignment. And if I would say something like, there's been some major changes in the COVID-19. Some of our health officials are looking at a new vaccine, as an example. As I'm saying that, some of our health officials are examining or assessing a new vaccine. When I say that, I'm transitioning from where I'm located to that part of the story. I'm actually showing them. So I'm bridging it from element A to element B. So with that said, you got to know how to use those techniques to make it effective. But the equipment, what kind of equipment? This is where students usually kind of fall short a little bit, lacking experience. And you can only get to a certain level of expertise through practice. You cannot just grab a camera. They're very expensive, very delicate, and they can break down. So you have to make sure that your technology and that the instruments that you're using, that you can use them effectively. So now I'm going to cut away to Mr. John Satterthwaite, who's been with Bowie State and a graduate for many, many years. He's a multimedia technician. He's shot thousands and thousands and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories over many, many years. And then I'll be going to Harold Martin to show you a little bit more. And we have some students here with us. We kind of scattered out for healthy reasons. So I want you to know, recapping, once again, blank sheet, your story, COVID-19, how are you going to tell it? How do you prepare? You become a researcher. You look at everything. You research, research, research. Then you put together a shot list. You know exactly what's going to happen when you get to the location. From there, you take the elements. What kind of shots do I need? Do I need medium shots, close-up shots, over-the-head shots? From there, you got to prepare for your stand-up. And before I go to the stand-up, I'm going to go to Mr. Satterthwaite, and he's going to explain to you how to set your camera up effectively You have to be able to make sure that you're ready and that it works. You only have one chance to tell the story. You can go back and tell that story again. So you want to make sure that you're prepared. Now I'll go to John Satterthwaite. Thank you. Stay with us. All right, so we talked about a number of important elements to get you ready for the field. It's called field production, field reporting. So you're going to have to be able to be out there with a crowd of people from all walks of life, a lot of camaraderie, a lot of noise, a lot of interaction and activity. Obviously, we have to be very cautious because everyone's social distancing. But now you have your equipment. Equipment is very expensive, extremely expensive. And you don't want to go out to cover a story and your camera malfunctions because you didn't check and make sure you have an SD card or your battery's working. So I'm going to turn this over to one of our experienced multimedia technician who happens to be a graduate of Bowie State University and have worked on multiple classes, Intro to Broadcast News, the Metro News, and we've done, as I said earlier, hundreds and hundreds of production from sports to entertainment to hard and soft news stories as it relates to Bowie State University and your career building. Okay, let's go to Mr. John Satterthwaite. Thank you, John, for being with us again and helping us out. Can you explain to us, all right, I've picked up the camera, I've got to cover a story. How do I get this machine working properly?
Okay, well, you want to make sure that you have good operable equipment, and you want to check that out. So usually we get like about a week or a few days in advance knowledge, and you have to sign out the equipment through Ms. Leslie Farrell. After you sign out the equipment, make sure that you have practice with the equipment before you go out. Make sure everything's functioning properly. So usually you have your tripod, your camera. Make sure you have everything to make sure that the camera can work. So you got to have a good battery. Make sure that you have your SD card. So, and that's here.
And can you show them how to load the SD card, John?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the SD card. So make sure you have one of these. Now ours usually they're like 128 gigabyte SD card. So this is a 4K camera. So it shoots in 4K, it shoots in ultra high definition, and it shoots in a little bit above regular definition. So that's the lowest grade, which is 480i. Okay, so the SD card, you take the SD card here, slide that into here. You want to push in a little bit, and it'll kind of click in place. Close the lever there. You also want to, you can check your battery. These have little monitors, so if you push the button here, you can actually check the level of your battery, make sure it's a full charged battery. And you want to load the battery in here. It's going to click in place. The camera's turned on here, so you're going to push this little indentation in and slide that down, and that's how you turn the camera on. The viewfinder is located on the side. You'll bring that out here, and it shows that your camera's working. Now, when I go out to shoot, I usually like to have a tripod with me, because if it's a long shoot, you stand on your feet for a long period of time, you don't want a shaky shot. So you want to make sure that your tripod is stable. So what you'll do is you'll take your tripod, make sure your legs are loose, then you're able to get it to the height that you need it, lock it in place. Once you have your camera locked in place, the feet are all firmly in, and then you want to position, get that there. Then for this tripod, you're going to load the camera from the back to the front, and then there's a little button that you use, that's your release. So when you first put the camera on the tripod, you don't have to push the button, but when you take the camera off, you do need to release it. All right, so we're going to slide this camera on here. As you heard it click, and it's locked in. And you want to tighten your camera on the tripod, make adjustments as needed. Now a lot of these cameras, you don't have to manually white balance, but if you're in manual mode, then it's good to white balance your camera. Now the white balancing, let me bring it around a little bit so you can see it. So the white balance on this camera, it's got to be in manual mode. You're going to hit the white balance button. Once you hit white balance, then you want to push the button here to actually activate the white balancing process. So the white balancing process is activated by this button here. Now I've white balanced my camera. I have it on my tripod. You can check a lot of these tripods have like a little bubble. You can hit the light button on it. This is called the J-ball, so I'm gonna make an adjustment to make sure that it's leveled. Then I'm going to, from here, I'm going to adjust the tripod and the camera to make sure I have a good shot of my subject. Always have a pair of headphones. You can use your own, but I personally prefer to have ones like these that cover your ears so that you can actually hear just what you're recording versus earbuds that kind of get a lot of interference from what's around you. Okay, plug our headphones out. Got a SD card in, and I'm ready to record. And I'm gonna just hand this back over to Dr. Thomas.
All right. You got a chance to really give, and thank you, John, for an exceptional example of how to be camera ready. Okay, now your equipment is ready, you're ready, and you're out there with all these various elements that are going on around you so you can tell a great story. Everything is a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. How do you want to open it? What are some of the ingredients on the inside of the story that you want to tell with B-roll and sound bites? And there's another word that you should know because it'll be in the midterm and the final, sound bites. Sound bite is just basically a comment or reaction comment from the subject matter. And we'll show you that with a student that's in the studio with us as an example in a moment. So John now's got the camera set up, but look how tall that I am. Okay, I'm 6'1", so what he would do is probably lift the camera up to my height level so that he can get various shots. And always know your different shots, you know, medium shots, wide shots, close-up shots. There's a host of others, a host of shots that you can utilize properly, but you want to know the basics. Okay, so once again, he's getting it to my level for me to prepare for my stand-up. But before that, I probably got to get some sound bites. So once again, always the mask to be safety. So I'm going to put my mask back on because I'm out here in the field and I've got to be cautious. Okay, so everybody realize the reason for me wearing the mask for health and safety reasons, but the story and news and your production goes on. So we're going to make sure you learn. Before I bring on our subject, this camera is very delicate. It can break, it can drop, and your story is gone, or your production is gone. So say, for instance, you got a production for YouTube that you own a site. You don't want to go and get a chance to interview a celebrity, say a Meek Mills or a Drake, one time in a lifetime, and all of a sudden your camera malfunction or someone kicks the tripod and it could fall off. Now you're in trouble. So you have to always make sure that you take care of your equipment like you would your automobile or your career. You have to be able to, it's very delicate. And usually you only have one camera in the field with you. Very seldom you have two unless it's a bigger story or you got multimedia technicians. So this is the equipment that I'm going to be using. I also have a handheld mic with me. And usually handheld mics, this particular mic is a very powerful mic and it can pick up all the ambiance and all the information, all the noise. So I'll keep it kind of close to my chest here, but I'm not going what they call eat the mic, bite the mic. I'm going to keep it about right here. So I'm going to bring up my student. Can you come on up? And we're going to maintain social distancing. Do you want me to have her on this side? Or? Yeah, matter of fact, I'll put her on this side. Yeah, okay. Say your first name.
Elena.
Elena, okay. Some say Elena, okay. Elena, and pull your, just like that. There you go, just like that, okay. Okay, let me know you're ready.
Yeah, you can turn that mic
on.
on.
This mic on, okay. And I'll put Elena and I'll show them like over the shoulder. Okay, so can you hear me on this one, John?
Gary, do we
Can you hear me? Yes. You can hear me, okay. All right, now Elena, come in a little bit closer. All right, this is my subject. And she's going to make a comment about COVID-19. Now, obviously she's a student and we're doing kind of an example. But in the real world, this is my first soundbite. And so she has agreed with me to make a statement. She always wants to know the person's first and last name and that you can CG that person's name and let the public know who you're talking to or conversing with. So this is called,
yeah. Can we switch hands?
Yeah, you want me to switch? I can.
Yeah.
And that's a good question. Now, this camera is on my left shoulder here. And it's called over the shoulder. So what John is doing is an over the shoulder shot. And you can pivot, move around to move left, truck left, dolly in. You want to make sure that you get the subject. You don't want to necessarily see me. I don't need to be in the shot right now. You want to be able to get this profile of the subject. This is what's important. So John's basically getting her here, but I'm making sure my subject looks at me. Sometimes subjects will be tempted to take the mic from you, not aggressively, but they think they need to hold the mic. So just make sure you keep the mic in your hand, make sure the mic is cradled just properly, but this is a very powerful microphone. So the technology allowed me to kind of stretch. So I've got that social distancing, and we both have masks on. So with that said, she's my first soundbite. Usually a short story, a minute 30, you could have 2 to 3 soundbites. Usually it'll be 2, 3, usually be max, unless you go into a longer story. It could be anywhere from a minute 30 to 2 minutes, depending on your director, depending on the station. Now, this is my first soundbite. Look at my body language. I have my hand here, I'm gonna switch hands. Also, before I start my soundbite, your arm could get really fatigued. Say for instance, you're interviewing 10 people. That arm can just really, that mic can feel like a weight. So what I've learned to do in my professional career is sometimes I'll use my shoulders or my arm to cradle it just to give it rest, or I'll drop it to relax the muscle in it, or I'll hold it just like this. So now this is my soundbite. I'm going to walk up and ask her a question, but she's going to go and just let me know and record her first and last name. So thank you for taking a moment out to make some comments about COVID-19, but can you spell your first and last name? And I'm saying to the subject, your first and last name and title. So say for instance you had the mayor and you don't want to misspell that person's name, then that's a problem. So you want to always double check. So when you get back to edit, you know the correct spelling of that name. Also a contact number if necessary. So can you spell your first and last name, your title?
Elena, A-L-A-N-A, Matson, M-A-T-S-O-N, and I'm currently a student here at Bowie State.
Okay, now with that said, students, she's muffling because she's got this big mass on her face, right? So what I'm going to do is say, can she say a little bit louder, as if though she's shouting because of the mass? Due to the circumstances, you want to make sure, otherwise you get back to edit, you didn't understand it, and say, for instance, you never see this person again. So thank you again. Can you say that a little clearer for just because of the mass?
Of course. My name is Elena, A-L-A-N-A, Matson, M-A-T-S-O-N.
Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. What are your comments on COVID-19 and kind of the direction the health officials are trying to do to come up with a cure for this deadly disease?
I believe that it's very important for everybody to do their part and wear their mask and to actually practice social distancing by staying 6 feet apart from people who are not part of your immediate family, as well as to always carry gloves and some hand sanitizer. It's always to always be safe and sorry.
Okay. Okay, so she just made her statement. John got the shot. Now I'm going to double check and check with John. John, are we okay?
Yes, we are.
Okay, now, with that said, I'm going to ask her another question. I may not use all this, and usually 1 or 2 questions are fine because you don't want to turn it into a talk show. So I'm going to ask her another question, and John, I'll turn to my videographer and make sure he's recording. The worst thing could happen, say for instance your videographer, your camera's not turned on, or you're required to set up the camera and do everything remotely yourself in the field. So once again, field production, you want to be ready. She said her name. I'm going to say her name again for safety. Ask another question. So I'll ask my videographer, are we ready?
We're ready.
We have speed here. Speed is just old terminology from the film business, but just saying, are you ready? Are we recording? Is fine. Okay, Elena, thank you again. Can you spell your first and last name for us, please?
A-L-A-N-A, Matson, M-A-T-S-O-N.
Okay. Elena, students now are being taught virtually and online due to our circumstances, and we're very fortunate we're in the studio. What advice would you have for them?
My advice is to get in touch with your teachers ahead of time before classes start. Email them if you're having any concerns. They will help accommodate you, as well as try to get to know your classmates so you guys can tackle on the class together.
Okay, I want to thank you very much. Now, in most circumstances, maybe I would shake your hand, but I can't do that, so I'm a nod. I want to thank this person for taking time out of their schedule. You notice how I'm got my mic stretched out so you can see my mic, but my mic's not doing this. My mic's not being awkward, and I'm not basically singing. I'm keeping it very, you can see our logo, and you see this on many stations, so you have an opportunity to really get some examples by watching network news. And there's dozens and dozens and thousands of reporters around the globe. I want to thank you very much. Okay, now I'm going to have you go up there too, right there. Okay, let me go back to another example. We're going to do the standard. So now let's go back to the entire story. You've been assigned a job. Your job is to go out and cover a story. May the story be a sports story, It could be a tragedy story, it could be a story on entertainment. Basically, the elements of structuring that story are the same. You want to make sure that you take your blank sheet again, and you want to double check your research, your shot list, what kind of B-roll you're going to need, what kind of nat sound bites. You're thinking ahead because you're on a time. And with that time clock rolling, you don't have a lot of time to get in the field and stay for hours. It's not a movie, that's a whole different plan. It's not a documentary, it's a different plan. You're just basically going out covering a story. You got maybe a minute and a half to tell that story as an example. You know you had a chance to hear from John Satterthwaite. I've got my mask on, I'm in the field, I'm making sure that I'm safe. And let me get back to microphones. Microphones can really harvest all sorts of germs because multiple people use them. So you don't always necessarily have the microphone. So what I'll usually do, I'll take a little hand sanitizer and I'll kind of spray it around the mic without getting inside the comb here, but just to make sure that everything is safe and clean because I'll be using it as my primary tool. So now you have collected your B-roll, you've got multiple sound bites, you're in the field, you got all the elements you need. Now it's time for you, if you're a talent in front of the camera, to do a stand-up. Remember, there's several of them. They give you a stand-up live, stand-up bridge, stand-up close, stand-up walking. So depending on what your needs are for that particular story, then that's your decision. What's going to be able to really showcase and tell the story. It's not about the talent. It is about the story. It's not about seeing me talking to you in this camera. It's about the lecture and about the information I'm sharing with you. And a great reporter is not necessarily the anchors. The anchors earn their opportunities to be in, or benefits to be as an anchor because they spent thousands and thousands of hours and many years in the field telling stories. They go anywhere from deserts to wars, to all sorts of presidential stories, political stories, but they're out there, tragedy stories, accident stories, health stories, and they spend years and years and years on telling, so they become very talented, proficient in the world of broadcast journalism. And once they get to that level, then on a weekend anchor, they've earned that right, and they can move to full anchors. But it's just not being an anchor because I look nice or I wear a nice suit or tie or suit, that's not it. So you have to pay your dues. And the things that we're sharing with you now are skills that you can utilize in other areas of production. So now you're ready to perform your stand-up. How do you perform a stand-up? It's very short. You're going to kind of summarize what you had a chance to tell. What is the story all about? So I'm just going to do an ad lib. Now I've got my mask on, I'm relaxing, and I'm going to say to my camera, and this is my stand-up track one. The reason I'm going to say track one, because say for instance, I have to be able to do a stand-up several times. Usually you could have 2 or 3 takes. You didn't like the first one, or maybe you want to try the second one or third one, you can reword it. So when you get back to the studio or back to your base or in a remote truck to edit right there on the spot, then you have the stand-up of choice that you want to be able to utilize to have a really nice, strong story and all the sources that go into the recipe of telling it. So as an example, I'm just going to do a COVID-19 ad lib here. So I'll say to my, do we have speed?
We have speed.
You had a chance to hear from a number of prominent health officials. COVID-19 is still with us in our world and our society. But there's a serious fight. They're now trying to come up with a vaccine that will help cure and control COVID-19. For the Metro News Report, I'm Otis Thomas. So I just gave myself a chance to breathe a little bit to get out the story. So if my videographers want to move around the camera, show something different, that's my stand-up close. I did a stand-up close, I didn't do a bridge, I just did a close. I summarized the story, and there's a lot of other elements that you can add. You can look at some notes if you want to, but you're just getting out your story. And you're thinking about one person, you're not thinking about 1,000 people watching you. You're not thinking, if you do that, your mind's going to be boggled down with all these different people. It's not like that. Think about one person. And in the environment, people are around you and back of you, on the side of you, and they're watching you. There's cameras taping you. And how I kept my head up a little bit, kept my microphone right here to execute my stand-up. And you have to rehearse. So that gives you an idea of how to put together a stand-up, maybe a stand-up live, stand-up bridge, stand-up close. Now, when we have our virtual reality or our live sessions on Blackboard, we can go into more detail to give you some more experience. The next thing we're going to take you to now is what happens if you're in the studio and you have to be up here on this set. There are some elements that you need to know that work, so stay with us. We'll come right back. That now you paid your dues in the field, you're an anchor. We'll be right back with more.
All right, countdown in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Earlier we talked about what it takes to really be prepared to do field production. Setting up your cameras, getting your equipment together, knowing the shot list, researching, being prepared. Being prepared, it will give you the professional stamina necessary to be able to make it in the world of broadcasting, especially broadcast news. We tell stories all over the world now, and these particular techniques are being utilized all over the world ubiquitously. With that said, now you're required to anchor the news, to take all those stories in a final script. So we covered a story on COVID-19, sports, convocation, special events, and now a succinct script. To give you an example of what it takes to be in this anchor box is not easy, because you're required to read news live and bring all those elements together. So usually you'll open up with a top story. That top story could be a number of things: a fire in Los Angeles, COVID-19, vaccine, political issue, wars. There's everything out there that does not go beyond imagination. But it's all a part of storytelling we call news special events. With that said, now you've earned your spot as one of our anchors. You're on the anchor desk here. You're in the studio. How many cameras? Usually it'll take 4 to 5 cameras. We have 3 cameras set up. A camera in the middle to get a nice wide shot, left, right for the anchors. So we have a single anchor today. Also happen to be one of our top anchors and a student, Nicholas Kavanaugh. So I really appreciate him taking time out of his busy schedule to kind of share with us on this lecture and give you an example. So now let's go in real time with Nicholas doing a live anchor report from the studio, and then he's going to toss that to our field reporter.
Welcome to Metro News Report. I'm Nicholas Kavanaugh, and here's our top story.
Let's take it from the top again. So, okay, ready? Just because I moved out the way. Okay, you ready? Okay, here, going to count. Okay, Nicholas, you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Metro News Report. I'm Nicholas Kavanaugh, and here's our top story. COVID-19 remains a deadly serious disease that affects every operation around the world. Bowie State University is making every effort possible to make our campus safe from the massive spread of COVID-19 on campus.
Okay.
As students prepare for the fall semester of 2020, Bowie State will provide physical COVID testing protocols and online registration methods for important services like financial aid. Everyone in our community should continue practicing safe distancing, wearing masks in public spaces, and hand washing frequently. Please stay sanitized and diligent towards your educational endeavors. Metro News reporter Elena Matson has more on this important story.